Okay, thank you. Do you have anything else, Trey? Thanks for the update on the history of our plan. And Mr. Cox, do you have?
Yeah, I've got a quick question. We've been criticized, or Darrell, you can probably stay there. You may enter into this, but of why these captured hogs can't be sold or donated to food pantries or whatever. And I'd like somebody to why that rule is in effect.
As far as, well, just for clarification, if a landowner is to trap, or they were able to trap pigs, it is illegal for them to take them live and transport them, okay? They have to kill them there in the trap. And the reason that is because the goal is to eliminate these pigs. And whenever you create a market for these wild pigs, then the tendency is for folks to not eliminate them. Because, for example, if this may be a bad example, but if you're a farmer and you've got a set of cows, you don't want to sell all your cows or quit farming, because you're losing that source of income over time. And that's the thought towards this. The goal is to eliminate these pigs, and that method or allowing that to happen will not help you accomplish that goal over time.
Is there a chance of disease?
There is a huge chance of disease. There is disease in these wild hogs, and it is a health concern. And Gray or Darrell may want to add to this.
I don't recall the numbers, and if any of the Region 3 or Region 4 folks can recall the instance of disease, because we do disease testing on a number of the hogs that we capture down on our lands, Catoosa and those other areas that we pull off our WMAs. We do test those hogs for disease, and we do have instances of brucellosis and pseudorabies. It's a small instance, but that is one of the biggest fears for our agency, is to ever even consider handing over a hog to the general public where there's an instance that someone could get sick. It's just a chance we're not willing to take. So it's something that we wouldn't even consider putting on the table.
I'm sorry, I can add a little bit more to that. What we found, the pigs that TWRA trapped last year, we did test those pigs, and we've got about a 9% disease rate. So 9 out of every 100 are diseased. And he's correct, the diseases are brucellosis and pseudorabies. And it's important to not just look at this as human health, because one thing about these pigs is they jeopardize the health of domestic animals also. And brucellosis is especially important. Well, pseudorabies too for domestic livestock, because it kills the reproduction of these animals. And just imagine how successful you're going to be as a farmer if you're not having any reproduction in your herd. So that's a very valid point.
The only comment I wanted to add, Chuck was preparing this presentation for me, and he sent me a copy of it yesterday or 2 days ago just for me to look over. And he already mentioned it to you. Towards the end of the slide, he was putting all these positive comments. I'm like, Chuck, I know this program's really near and dear to your heart, and you want to brag about it, but you got to tell both sides of the stories and put the negative comments in there too. And he said, no, there is no negative comments. And that's a true testament, not just to Chuck, but the entire agency. This program is, we issue these permits to almost 1,200 individual landowners, and they have no negative comments about that program itself. There's no phone calls. It's just such a smooth running process. And as you all know, it kind of came at us really quickly, and we had to scramble to put this program together. And it's functioning very, very well. The landowners are happy. It's doing its job, and so it's just a testament to what the folks in our agency are doing on the ground for the landowners out there.
Chuck, I had one question. So obviously, as you saw in some of those reports, a private landowner, if they do decide they can harvest the pig and eat it themselves. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And are they fully aware of the chances or the disease, or how do they protect themselves? Or they just basically ignore that and decide they want some barbecue, pretty much?
I think they're careful. And I think for the most part, landowners are aware of the disease factor.
Okay.
I know that there's no telling how many public presentations we have given as a wildlife agency in the last 2 years to all types of groups.
Well, I'm sure,
And that's one of our things that we want to make sure they walk away with is that disease potential. But, you know, the landowners are given the flexibility to care for the pigs however they want to. They can consume them, they can give them away. They just
you mean
can't.
after they're slaughtered, obviously.
Right, after they've been killed. Yeah,
So they can just bury them if they
they
want to.
can bury them. But, you know, on the reports, I see that a lot of them are eaten. And so a lot of them are being consumed. But, you know, those people that are consuming are more than likely just taking all the normal precautions that you would take when handling meat or preparing meat.
Okay.
So I think the message is out there, although I do think that we do need to continue stressing the importance of being careful.
Well, like Darrell said, this is an excellent report. I appreciate your time and the success you've had there. It's very interesting, so thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to suggest, we've got some affected legislators that were real hot on this issue. Can this be reduced to like a one-pager and distributed to some of those folks?
Absolutely. We're working on making that available for Mr. Johnson to share downtown.
Okay.
Got a two-part question. How many states, you're calling them pigs today, we call them hogs sometimes. How many states is this a top priority, and has TWRA been contacted by other states to see what you're doing to take care of that problem?
This is one of our top priorities, obviously, and there are lots of states out there, as far as their wildlife managers would like to see it their top priority. However, it doesn't always rise to the top. But there are lots of states that are watching Tennessee and patterning themselves after us on our management approach. For example, every hog meeting I go to, somebody pulls me to the side from another state, for example, Virginia and Kentucky, or even some of the southern states where there's longer standing traditions. They're absolutely saying, man, how did y'all accomplish this? How is it going? Can you share information with me that I could take home and share? So there's a lot of interest in what Tennessee is doing, and a lot of people want to pattern themselves by us. Did I address both parts of your question? Very good. All right, thank you one more.
One second.
Yes, sir.
Knowing that these animals carry diseases, what's the likelihood that they can transmit that disease to other animals in the wild, or even other pigs, maybe on a hog farm or something?
Yeah, there's absolutely that potential, especially to domestic livestock, and there also is with wildlife too. Now that part of it's not as understood as the potential from wild hogs to domestic. In other words, the potential from wild hogs to wildlife is not as well understood because there's just not, the wildlife disease issue is one that's just gotten serious over the last several years, and there hadn't been as much research dedicated towards wildlife disease as there has been with domestic breeds because they make up our food supply. But it's not as well understood, the transfer to wildlife, but it definitely has a lot of potential for negative impact.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, thank you for the success of the program. I'm learning more and more as a new member of the commission. Can you help me understand? So there are several landowners who they're part of this program and have used multiple strategies to eradicate on their properties. Even still, they've kind of gotten to a tipping point where they're either educated hogs or they are less successful, but they still have significant damage. Given now that there's some time under the agency's belt with this program, what strategies are you all exploring for that type of situation that I think probably it's in the kind of the largest hog population areas, but what advice to those landowners, or what are the strategies that the agency can consider given where we are with the program?
Well, there needs to be a continual emphasis on educating the landowners, because a lot of the wild hogs that become trap wise or trap shy, it's because of mistakes that the landowner's making. So the first thing you gotta do is help them understand the right approach to catching these pigs, because you have to condition them to the trap before you can ever trap them. So that's probably the first thing. And it's also educating them on how to move through the process. First thing you do is trap, get all that you can, target the entire family group, and then the ones that you can't, you may have to shoot instead of trap. So it's understanding how to go through that process to be the most effective. Now, if you've trapped them and then you've got a few out there that you weren't able to trap and you're not able to shoot those, that's a really challenging situation. But, you know, that's one where hunting over bait would be a good possibility, or a good way of handling those problem animals. And, you know, if you want to think way outside the box, or really not that far out of the box, but one program that's become very popular in surrounding states is the aerial gunning program. USDA Wildlife Services actually has an aerial gunning program, and they've got a helicopter in the local area, so things are more well, they're cheaper than they used to be. So it's more of a reality that we could utilize a helicopter program, because when you look at the cost of trapping versus a helicopter program, they're real similar in the end. So I think if you've exhausted that trapping effort and your shooting effort, and then you had a helicopter program, which can be a cooperative between landowners with USDA that doesn't even involve the wildlife agency, they could go in and target those few animals that are left and totally wipe out small pockets.
That's very helpful, and I think that there are landowners who have gone through the proper channels and they just still have those challenging circumstances where they have, whether through mistakes or just through time, and the right kinds of strategies executed. They've just got hogs that are still causing a lot of damage, and I would love to talk with you about that. I think some of the legislative conversation, now I've had a couple of conversations with members of the General Assembly who have landowners who are really struggling with educated hogs and still causing a great deal of damage. And so, one, I think this information will be very helpful to them, but exploring those kinds of strategies, and I'd love to try to perhaps connect some of those folks. But thank you.
One other point before I close is that's a possibility that'll address what you're describing is we're going to do some research in the future that helps us get better at targeting those animals that we're unable to trap. So what we'll be able to do sometime in the near future is actually track some animals and determine what is it that makes them so difficult to take out. And then once we realize what that is, we'll be able to better target those animals.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Anybody? Thank you. Next, we have Bill Reeves, Aquatic Resources Program Manager, to talk about the State Wildlife Action Plan Partnership Award.
Good morning. I wanted to take a few minutes this morning to bring you up to date on a project that I brought to your attention almost 3 years ago now at the Gatlinburg Commission meeting. We presented a short video on hellbenders and the need at that time for us to study them. The need was brought about by a notification by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service that they were considering listing Ozark hellbenders and eastern hellbenders. We don't have Ozark hellbenders. They're in Arkansas and Missouri, but we do have eastern hellbenders. Since that time, the Fish and Wildlife Service has listed the Ozark hellbender, and the eastern hellbender is kind of waiting in the wings to be listed. But we conducted a study that actually won't end until this June to uncover what was going on with hellbenders in Tennessee. As a result of that study, we were nominated this past January for a national award through the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies, their partnership award. And a couple weeks ago, we went to Washington to accept that award. We won the award for the National Partnershiping Award. And all of our partners went as well. In fact, I have a picture of that. This was in the Rayburn House building in Washington where we accepted our award. You might be a little curious as to why a duck is an award for a hellbender. I had that same question, and the response was, Bill, you can have a duck or you can have a duck, but you're going to have a duck as an award. So, okay, I accepted that. And the other thing I was told was, but you get, the good news is you get to pick which duck you want. So I always thought highly of pintails, so that's the one I picked. Introducing you to these folks in this picture, besides myself, this is Dr. Stephen Spear. He works for the Orion Society, which is a nonprofit dedicated to the conservation of amphibians and reptiles. This is Brian Miller, Dr. Brian Miller from MTSU. Dr. Michael Freak from Lee University in Cleveland, Tennessee, and Dale McGinnity from the Nashville Zoo, who is here in the audience. And then Naomi Edelson was the presenter of the award, and she's the Director for State and Federal Partnerships with the National Wildlife Federation. So, in addition to this, we were asked to do a webinar, and we did this just yesterday on one of the aspects of the study, which was using eDNA techniques to uncover locations of hellbenders in streams in Tennessee. And eDNA is a recent genetic development where you can actually just go collect a water sample, just about a quart of water, and determine who lives in the stream. And in this case, we were determining that whether hellbenders were there or not. So we were really excited about this whole thing, and I asked our video guys if they wouldn't put together another video kind of summarizing what went on in this project. They've done that, and there's one aspect of the video that I need to mention to you. Hellbenders have created quite a sensation, not only amongst our community, but among across the big waters in Europe. And Dale had visitors from Belgium come in. Was that this year or last year? Well, it had been last year, yeah. And they went out with him and surveyed hellbenders with him. And so part of this is from that Belgian video that they showed in Antwerp as part of their zoo program. So, oh.
Pues hay que poner action.
What would interest a television crew to travel halfway around the world? Compel a college professor and his assistants to search the depths of a mountain stream.
We're off there. It's a bad puppy.
Or become the center of attention for an international expert on species preservation, one of Tennessee's most unique residents, an animal that hasn't changed since the age of dinosaurs.
When you get the blues precies.
It's like they're dancing.
Yeah.
The frogs are beautiful.
Yes, very, very beautiful.
But are you ready to see the largest North American giant salamander, the hellbender? And this is it right here.
Yeah.
Pull the animal out so you can get a better view of it. Yeah, they're really big. In the geological record, if you go back in time, they were around since the age of the dinosaurs. The fossils look just like the fossils from these guys.
Yeah.
But pretty soon it'll probably be listed on the endangered species list because the hellbender has been declining for the last 20 years really rapidly across its range. The problem appears to be with the lack of recruitment, which means that babies aren't being grown or aren't growing up. We're still finding a few older animals, but as time goes by, we're losing those animals. It could be pollution, disease, siltation. Another possibility is it's just a new chemical that's been put in the environment in the last 20 to 25 years that's widely used. We're interested in developing laboratory-style methods to breed them, and we think we can manage the genetics of the captive population better that way. Hopefully this year we'll have lots of babies with lots of females and lots of males.
I hope so.
This is our only female.
Yeah.
So now, Sherry, we can start the ultrasound.
If you look at the areas that are more black, look like round circles, those are the actual follicles.
Yeah.
Those follicles look good, but they haven't started the final ovulation stage yet.
We're really participating in worldwide conservation. That's the most important thing. So it makes people know around the world that we're serious and we're involved and we're not just here for entertainment. We're here to research and learn to help preserve their DNA and their genetics. Then, if we can figure out whatever the underlying cause is, then we'll have that DNA before we lose it, so we can actually help breed them back.
Okay, so all these animals have an individual personality, and this is the one that likes to bite people. And now we're just going to do a gentle massage along the testes. That's milk.
You got it. That's milk, yeah. Yeah. Whoa. Very slowly. Yeah.
That's a couple of mLs, 1 to 2 mLs. Dale's good at this. This is Dr. Robert Brown. Robert has been collaborating with us for the last 2 years to develop protocols to cryopreserve the hellbender mill. It's got a long flagellar membrane that undulates.
And once we've got it cryopreserved, we can recover it for up to 50, 100,000 years. No one's sure because no one's lived that long to tell, but certainly for a very long period. And then we can fertilise the eggs and we can get that particular strain and put it back.
That species' genetic diversity should be preserved for thousands of years. And we're done. And ready to go into the field and collect some more samples. Like we have one.
Yeah.
Looks like a really small one. Now we're gonna go do ultrasound on this animal. Oh, it's a beautiful little one. We have a traveling lab with cryopreservation equipment, liquid nitrogen, disease sampling equipment, ultrasound. So we're able to do a really good health assessment on the animal. Now we'll get a chytrid sample. This is what you don't see in about 90% of the rivers is young animals. All you see is big adult animals.
Yeah.
And that's why this river is so great, because we still have babies coming up.
Yeah,
So this will just be interesting to see if we can tell if it's a male at this size or a female. You did see some testes?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it actually looks a decent size for him.
Yeah, but you're not seeing all those big seminiferous tubules at the end.
They're there.
We may even try to strip this animal.
Okay.
That would be really interesting. An animal this small. It looks like you got a big one on. I'll trade you big ones for small ones.
To know that there's something so unique, so spectacular in our rivers here that most people indeed don't even have a clue, that to me makes it exciting.
The males will get under the rocks and excavate the nest and then entice the female in there
and then she'll lay the eggs, and then the male is actually the one that guards the eggs until they leave the nest.
Michael Freak's been doing surveys throughout the Cherokee National Forest, and we're finding that they're not abundant in a lot of places, not even present in a lot of places. We had done some surveys on the Cumberland Plateau on the Obed-Emery system. Spent a good bit of time searching, didn't turn up a single hellbender.
There's clearly something wrong with the water quality or the habitat. So when we solve all that and we reintroduce it, it's just a fantastic icon species for the achievement of technology and progressive thinking over destruction of the environment.
In this river, we can find all age class animals. So it's really important to study a great healthy population like this and try to determine what factors are different here than in all our other streams, or most all of our other streams where the hellbenders are going away so fast.
If we have animals that are unable to live in our water, it should be telling us things about how we're taking care of that water. And that's important to everybody.
So it's really important to have nice, clean rivers, and that's really important for people too, because we collect our drinking water from rivers. So what's good for hellbenders is good for people, and what's good for people is good for hellbenders. That's right.
Protect hellbenders. Ja, voilà. En ga je daarmee op de barricade staan? Protect the hellbenders.
Oh, that's a good point. Commissioner Cox asked who's paying for this. This comes from what we call state wildlife grants. It's a federal funding mechanism that Congress set up in 2000 to prevent species from being put on the endangered species list. Because, as you know, that's a very contentious issue, both locally and nationally, about how species on the endangered species list impact personal activities as well as corporate and national activities. So Congress wanted to supply money to prevent, to kind of put a roadblock in there to say, okay, we've restored these animals, now they don't need to be on the list. Unfortunately, in this case, I think we may end up with the eastern hellbender being on the list because it's just not there where it used to be just 20 years ago, as Dale mentioned. And Dale, would you like to add anything to what was mentioned in the video, or?
Well, I'd just like to say, with the SWIG funds that we got, you want me to speak here? With the SWIG funds we got a lot more support for amphibian conservation at the zoo. Sherry is our amphibian specialist. So we had a new full-time position at the zoo with a one-time $30,000 grant. I'm a C-SPAN junkie. I see, $1 million creates 10 or 15 jobs in a lot of government programs. So to me, it's just a really efficient program, and if we can develop these technologies now before the species is listed, or if it does get listed, we'll be ready to do Head Start programs and release and hopefully get it delisted as soon as possible. The other thing is, for the last 10 years, there's been a Hellbender Symposium where 60 to 70 Hellbender researchers, state wildlife agency people get together and talk about conservation biology and research. And we're co-hosting that in Tennessee this year. In past years, people said, Tennessee is a big part of the Hellbender Range. Why isn't there more work going on there? But with this SWIG grant, we've been able to do a lot of research, and we'll be able to let all the other states know how Hellbenders are doing in Tennessee and where we're at. And so I'd like to thank Bill and TWA for the grant.
Dale, in a perfect world, what's the lifespan of a hellbender?
Well, the captive longevity is 30 years, but mark recapture work, they grow really slow, is showing that they can probably live to be 75 to 80 years old. So they're really long-lived species, and I'd say for the non-herpetologists, sort of hellbenders are to the amphibian world what bald eagles are to the bird world, except maybe they're more important because they're so evolutionarily distinct. There's hardly any other animals like them. They only have two relatives, one in China and one in Japan.
What rivers were you doing your research on in Tennessee?
Well, hellbenders historically were found from the Tennessee River west throughout the whole state. And now there's only really healthy populations up in the mountains where the habitat's really protected. There's another sort of evolutionarily distinct group in the Duck River watershed where where we just find mostly older animals. There's one small population where it looks like there's recruitment or offspring being born. The Cumberland drainage is more problematic. We haven't found any populations in the Cumberland drainage, even though there's recent records 10 to 12 years old of hellbenders being in some of those streams. We surveyed some of those intensively and couldn't find any hellbenders.
Are there already laws in place to protect them as far as collecting them and taking them?
Well, they're listed as species of special concern or protected in every state they're found. But so I don't personally believe that overcollection, is a problem. I think maybe trout lines in the past, people used to be afraid of them, thought they impacted their fisheries, which they don't. They're primarily crayfish eaters. People probably killed them when they caught them on their trout lines. But I don't see as many trout lines out in the streams as I did 20 years ago. But the real problem, I got to say, is with recruitment. For some reason, and we really haven't determined it, the young are surviving to adulthood now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. They're scary looking and they have a scary name. And I guess I'm concerned that maybe people perceive them as dangerous, or that they would kill them out of a concern for their own welfare or whatever. Can you tell us that? Apparently they're not dangerous and don't pose a risk to human beings.
No, they don't. They can give you a nasty bite, but it would just be a little local trauma. I mean, they're just such amazing animals. A fish could give you, a really bad bite too, potentially.
Well, and you were seen handling a lot of them, and I didn't see any kind of.
And I've so many in the
propensity
field, I've never had them offered a bite. If you catch them on a hook and line, and they get really upset, then they might try to bite you.
Thank you.
I've got a quick question about you, and I don't want to appear skeptical, but you can test the water to see what lives in the water, I suppose, by excrement or DNA or whatever, but you've tested the water where you have recruitment and where you don't have recruitment. What's the difference in the water?
Well, actually, we really haven't tested the water, and it's really expensive. And then to test the water, you have to test the water, but you also have to test the sediment in the water, because these guys are living under rocks in the sediment, so things may settle out into the sediment. But to test for it, you got to know exactly what you're looking for. So hopefully that's a future step, is to test the sediment in the water. I mean, we have some ideas on what it might be, and some contaminants have been tested for, but not nearly enough.
If I might, on the funding thing, I forgot to mention that this requires a match, and each one of these partners put up the match for that federal share of the grant. So.
Thank you. The hellbender? It goes back to when the species was first described in the late 1700s. The local people, that's just what they called it. It's got so many common names: snot otter, devil dog, North American giant salamander. So that was just the first one that stuck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, instead of a pause, I think we'll take a break, but let's take a little pause in case there's anybody else that wants to address the Wildlife Committee, and then we'll take a break.